When a company spends the better part of 2 decades cultivating the legend of John Cena, shaping him into an icon whose name rings just as loudly in mainstream entertainment circles as it does inside a wrestling ring, there comes a point where the weight of that legacy becomes less of a tool and more of a burden. And it's unfolding right before everyone's eyes as John Cena's final chapter plays out in a surprisingly muted, poorly constructed, and frankly disinterested storyline against Randy Orton. What should have been an all-time historic endgame for one of the biggest careers the industry has ever seen is instead limping toward a conclusion that feels tacked on and unappreciated, even with all the history, records, and personal stakes baked in. It's a Cena problem that WWE either won't acknowledge or doesn't know how to fix. Either way, it's leading to a scenario where one of wrestling's last true megastars is coasting to retirement on fumes, and the blame is squarely on the company's creative stagnation and shallow promotional priorities. At WrestleMania 41, Cena accomplished what many had assumed would elude him forever. He defeated Cody Rhodes, captured his 17th World Championship, and officially broke Ric Flair's record, becoming the most decorated world champion in WWE's history. On paper, it's the kind of milestone that should have set the entire company ablaze. The image of Cena standing tall, title in hand, heel for the first time in over 2 decades should have been a cultural earthquake that rippled far beyond the niche of pro wrestling diehards. Yet somehow, WWE managed to fumble the aftermath so dramatically that by the time Randy Orton entered the fray to rekindle their iconic rivalry, most fans weren't talking about Cena's title win, his heel turn, or even the record-breaking nature of the moment. They were talking about everything else the company was pushing harder: corporate partnerships, superficial celebrity tie-ins, and the ever-expanding sports entertainment label that continues to sand down the edges of professional wrestling's raw emotional core. The most glaring issue isn't that WWE put Cena in a program with Randy Orton again. On the contrary, with the right focus and energy, Orton versus Cena one last time could have been the perfect career capstone. Their rivalry spans eras, encapsulates generational shifts, and is filled with legitimate big match history that few other pairings can boast. The problem lies in WWE's almost casual indifference toward making the feud feel urgent, monumental, or even narratively satisfying. Orton's return attack on Cena on the Raw after WrestleMania felt like a formality, a box check to signal that we're doing this match, but little else. The segments between them since then have lacked bite, emotion, and storytelling clarity. There's no deep reflection on their shared past, no exploration of how both men have evolved, and certainly no compelling rationale as to why this encounter is different or definitive compared to their previous ones. It's presented as, hey, here's Cena and Orton again, you know the drill, when in reality, the audience deserves far more than a nostalgia play. What makes this misstep even more frustrating is that WWE is sitting on narrative gold and simply choosing not to mine it. Cena's heel turn isn't just a character twist, it's a seismic shift that could have redefined how his legacy is perceived. After years of being the unshakable moral compass and face of hustle, loyalty, and respect, Cena finally embraced the darker instincts he'd always resisted. Aligning himself with The Rock, of all people, opened up layers of history, betrayal, and philosophical conflict that could have driven an entire year's worth of storytelling. Yet WWE has barely scratched the surface. Cena's promos haven't delved into why he turned, what he's seeking to prove, or how his worldview has changed. His interactions with Orton have avoided these rich thematic elements entirely. Instead, the match at Backlash is being sold with the thinnest veneer of significance, as if the mere presence of these two names is enough to do all the heavy lifting. But in 2025, fans expect more. The modern wrestling audience is attuned to nuanced storytelling, long-term arcs, and emotional payoff. Cena's heel turn, combined with the looming specter of his retirement at year's end, should be the engine driving the entire company's creative direction right now. Every show should revolve around his actions, alliances, and motivations. Yet you'd be hard-pressed to find any indication that WWE is treating it as more than an obligatory send-off. This is a man who carried the company through lean years, whose merchandise sales propped up balance sheets, and whose mainstream appeal brought in eyes during transitional periods. If any career warranted the meticulous care and grand narrative sweep of a Ric Flair 2008-style farewell run, it's John Cena's. Instead, WWE is opting for the path of least resistance. Pair him with a familiar face, trot them out with minimal storyline scaffolding, and count on name recognition to do the rest. The fact that Backlash is taking place in Orton's hometown of St. Louis adds even more missed opportunity. opportunity. WWE could be weaving hometown loyalty, legacy pride, and end-of-career stakes into every promo, video package, and match stipulation. The fact that Orton, once the Viperous villain, is now the de facto babyface against a heel, Cena, should be fueling character work of the highest order. Orton's motivations could be centered on redemption, closure, and protecting the integrity of the title Cena won through underhanded means. Cena, in turn, could be cutting scathing promos about how he's always been better, how Orton wasted his potential, and how he's going to retire as the undisputed greatest ever by vanquishing the only man who's ever truly rivaled him. None of that is happening. Instead, we get surface-level interactions that lean on vague, "we've done this forever" nostalgia with no fresh angle or emotional depth. WWE's promotional machinery has also been shockingly lackluster. The marketing of Backlash hasn't leaned heavily into the Cena-Orton showdown. Commercials, social media pushes, and media appearances have treated it as just one of several marquee matches, rather than the once-in-a-lifetime farewell clash it actually is. Even the tagline "one last time" feels generic and uninspired. There's been no concerted effort to frame this as Cena's potential final world title defense, his last major singles match, or his closing chapter against his greatest rival. Contrast this with how WWE framed The Undertaker's retirement bouts or Shawn Michaels' career-threatening storyline, and the difference in effort is staggering. It feels less like a tribute and more like a reluctant contractual obligation. Cena, who has given everything to the company, deserves more than that. The fans deserve more than that. This disinterest reflects a deeper, structural issue within WWE's current creative philosophy. Under the TKO group and the ongoing corporate-first direction, the emphasis is less on organic, character-driven storytelling and more on creating content that fits neatly into external partnerships, investor presentations, and media rights negotiations. Cena's heel turn and farewell run don't easily lend themselves to quick, digestible PR soundbites, so they're being de-emphasized. Instead of capitalizing on the narrative richness of a complicated, morally gray Cena in his twilight years, WWE is funneling energy into broader, brand-friendly initiatives. The irony is thick. The man who once symbolized WWE's mainstream viability is now being quietly ushered out so the company can focus on homogenized entertainment product that appeals to non-wrestling audiences. It's also worth noting how this Cena problem is not just about mishandling one feud. It's emblematic of WWE's larger inability to tell satisfying long-term stories for aging stars. They did something similar with The Rock earlier in the year, when his semi-return was more about backstage segments and corporate glad-handing than meaningful matches or rivalries. Cena's situation is even more tragic because he's clearly willing to do the work. He's in shape, cutting crisp promos, and committed to playing heel despite the risk to his public image. All he needs is for the creative infrastructure to support him, and WWE seems unwilling or unable to provide it. If this is how the company handles one of its most loyal ambassadors, it raises serious questions about how future legends will be treated as they approach retirement. The other elephant in the room is that the locker room itself could benefit from Cena's heel run being given more prominence. A dominant, villainous Cena holding the world title opens up fresh matchups with younger stars who could benefit enormously from sharing the ring with him, devoid of the modern stakes that could rejuvenate both men's careers. Even on a meta level, WWE isn't capitalizing on the broader cultural significance of Cena's career winding down. Mainstream outlets should be running retrospectives, podcasts should be dissecting his best matches, and WWE's own network should be flooded with documentaries chronicling his impact. Instead, the momentum has sputtered. The Netflix Raw deal has provided a huge platform that Cena's arc could be dominating week to week, but the storytelling ambition simply isn't there. Cena is being treated like just another part-time legend making sporadic appearances, rather than a foundational pillar whose final matches should be appointment viewing. As Backlash approaches, it's becoming increasingly clear that WWE is not going to course correct in time. The match will happen. The history between Cena and Orton will get a passing nod in video packages, and the outcome, whether Cena wins or loses, will likely be shrugged off as just another result in the churn of WWE programming. There won't be the sense of finality, reverence, or catharsis that this feud deserves. Cena will either quietly fade into a semi-retired promotional role or disappear until his Hall of Fame induction, with little fanfare marking the end of one of the most significant careers in wrestling history. It's a John Cena problem because the company company built so much of its modern identity on his back, and now that his career is reaching its inevitable conclusion, they don't know how to properly honor or utilize him. Worse, they don't seem to care. The creative ambivalence surrounding his current run is not just a disservice to Cena, it's a disservice to the fans who followed his journey through every title reign, rivalry, and character evolution. This should have been an all-time legendary send-off. Instead, it's shaping up to be a quiet, forgettable afterthought. WWE has fumbled one of its most valuable assets, and in doing so, has exposed a creative void that even a 17-time world champion can't fill.